Words mean more than what is put down on paper. It takes the human voice to infuse them with a deeper meaning. Opening words by Maya Angelou. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. It's Happy World Voice Day. So may we use our voices with joy and celebration today. Welcome all to our inclusive Sunday service. Whether you've been here before or you're new to this church, whatever you believe, whatever you do in your day, whoever you love, we all come together this morning in our growing community. And also whether we have 2 legs or 4. Very welcome. We begin our service this morning by lighting our chalice. Across the generations, we have carried the flame. We fought the injustice, sang the songs, spoke for truth, and built something lasting. We now here join in the line and carry the flame forward. Across the generations, we have been nourished by this flame. We are singing new songs, breaking old barriers, sharing in the work. We join in the line here in this church and carry the flame forward. This is our chalice, the light of love, justice and community. Let it be a symbol of hope to all of us here today and those of you who are joining online. And let us carry the light in our hearts wherever we go. Let's come together in prayer. This is a prayer by Matthew Rosen, and it's called May Our Voices Be. If another strains to breathe, may our voices be the gentle rise and fall. If another chokes on tears, may our voices be an opening to hope. If another has forgotten, may our voices be a memory upwelling. If another is adrift, may our voices be the calling of community. Let us sit a while together in this silence. And so it is. We sing our first hymn this morning, 172 in the group. Before we have our first reading this morning, apologies I didn't introduce myself to those of you who are new here this morning. My name is Jennifer. I am a ministry student and the ministry elect at this church, so you are very, very welcome. Our first reading is called Finding My Voice Again, and it's by Aisha Yusuf. I started writing my book as a 15-year-old teenager who found an escape from her world into the world she was creating. I would lock myself away in a room and spend hours exploring this new world as I built this book piece by piece. At the time, I never thought about publishing it. I only wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. I wanted to use my voice in written prose. I was too frightened to speak out loud. But I realised that it was important that I shared my story with the world, to represent people like me. And then I saw a quote by Toni Morrison. If there's a book you want to read but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. So I did. I wrote the book I always wanted to read, and then I decided that maybe others would like to read it too. I was a hopeful 18-year-old, someone who thought I could traverse anything. After weeks and months of excruciating waiting, the rejection started to pour in. Ayala is a terrific character, very positive. Unfortunately, after careful consideration, I've decided I'm not the best agent to represent this book. I'm simply not enthusiastic enough. Thank you so much for thinking of me, but this one's not quite right for my list. I have to be very selective. Please note that this is a very subjective business and that tastes range widely. And so it went on and on and on. I thought about giving up. My voice, it's obviously not that important. And then COVID hit. Everything shut down. My book was the last thing that was on my mind. I watched the news nervously. But through those dark moments, something miraculous happened. A bio house was born, a published company founded by myself and my sisters. We were fed up of the lack of representation in the industry, so we just said, why don't we do it ourselves? We published the first book, Race to the Finish Line, bringing a mix of our stories and our voices to the forefront. And yet, the time of publishing came about with attacks of British Muslim women in the city where I lived. It was almost as though my words were coming off the page and being played out in real life. That's when I realised that Race to the Finishing Line wasn't just a book. It was stories that needed to be told. Just when I thought the book was a complete waste of time, I joined the National Novel Writing Month on a whim. I thought, well, why not? I found my spark again. I found my voice. The words came onto the page. It ignited my passion to use my voice in the written word and bring other voices like mine to the forefront. I've learned that writing is more than just putting words on a page. It's about finding my own voice and sharing my own experiences. What I didn't realise was when I went to a book signing. The words came off the page and out of my mouth. All of our stories have the power to inspire and to make a difference in the world. If I can do it, so can you. Aisha Yusuf. We sing again from the Purple Book, number 21. I was suffocating, drowning in an angry sea of thrashing voices. No matter how hard I tried, no one could hear my voice. I tried to form words, but when I opened my mouth, all that came out was a tiny squeak. The echo of my history teacher's voice retelling the story of Captain Cook discovering Australia and claiming it for the crown rumbled in the background. But my teacher hadn't cared to mention that it was my people's land and that Cook had taken it away. I felt a wave of rage and indignance rise inside me. This is my people's land and has been for a millennium. Cook didn't discover Australia. The words fired out of my mouth like a cannon, but had no effect. What should have been a firm voice was instead a muffled rumble. worse, everybody's eyes were on me and they were thinking, there she goes again, talking nonsensical stuff. Their gaze hardened, but I was only a voiceless 9-year-old. And then the bell rang. I had PE now. It was the only class I enjoyed. I loved running. I loved how the wind attacked my face and whipped my ear. I always ran barefoot because it felt good to feel the soft soil of the land between my toes. But most of all, I loved how free I felt. I sang when I ran. Nobody could hear me. At the end of my sports class, my teacher spoke to me about a sports scholarship. If my parents agreed, I could go to the institute in Canberra. So I ran home, singing with a smile on my face. I woke up during the night hearing my parents arguing. Dad wanted to take me to live to his part of the country. Mum felt that I should go to Canberra. Once again, I felt that I had no voice in the matter. I woke in the morning. Dad had already left. So Mum had won. I was going to Canberra. 2 years later, at the Canberra State Championships, I was standing on the podium, holding the Aboriginal flag high above my head. I felt my voice soar over everyone else's. My land, my people. I had finally found my voice without saying anything at all. Prisha Real, Finding My Voice. So let us take this moment, settle ourselves in our chairs, try to let go of what's come before and what comes after this moment. Feel the breath that fuels the voice. As we sit together, let us recall the voices that bless us and call us towards a loving life. Let us acknowledge the voices that we don't want to hear. The voices that don't sound like ours, don't agree with ours. We acknowledge the voices that say we can never be enough. And within all, we hear our own voice, a mixture of many. The joy, the suffering, the light and the dark. The success and the failure. The anger and the compassion. Let us know that our voice is precious. Let us know that our voice is enough. Let us know that all the voices around us just wish to be heard. Let us become some of the voices of blessing, of challenge and empowerment. We give thanks for our voice. And so it is. She was blessed with a wonderful voice, and when she stood in the spotlight, she sang for all to hear. Her voice was pitch perfect. It climbed the highs and the lows, but her voice was not attached to her soul. And because her voice was not attached to her soul, it could not attach to the souls of those who listened. As the years went by, she sang and sang and sang, and yet people came to listen to her, and at the end of her performance, they just got up and walked away. They weren't touched in their heart. One day she woke up to a sadness that broke her spirit and shattered her soul, and she cried like she never had before. A lifetime of tears in each and every drop. She thought she would be paralyzed, unable to escape this misery. So she did what she always did, which was to sing. Her shattered soul began to recuperate. Her voice wove into her soul, and she began to sing from her heart. And everything was different. She became a Pied Piper of souls, first connecting them one by one, then twos, and then by the masses. The ballrooms, the theatres filled, standing room only. People would come to hear her sing, transfixed by her true beauty and wonder of her voice. This was her true voice, born out of pain. She healed herself over and over by singing and singing and singing. Her voice was connected to her heart, to her soul. She had found her true voice. So three very different stories, and the lament of the soul as a voice, a journey through writing to find a voice, and a voice literally in action. I wonder whether any of us can identify with any of those characters. When I was writing this week, I was speaking to a friend of mine who has also moved around a lot in her life, and she has a really interesting mix of voice. We sat and spoke for a while. We managed to unearth a bit of London accent, a core of our Irish accent, and something else which I think was a mishmash of Cornish and Italian and something else. But all of those come together to give her this unique voice. It's a voice of experience. A voice of geographical locations. A voice of pain and joy. And I know there are people in this room who use their voice a lot for a living, so I'm not even beginning to go into how the voice works and what it does and how we project it. But what I wanted to do was spend the next few minutes, if you're willing, to just meet with somebody else in the congregation, have a conversation. If you're stuck for something to speak about, then maybe just speak about why you're here today, how you're feeling. But rather than focus on what the person is saying, become a little bit interested in the voice that you're listening to. Is there an accent? Is there a sadness, a joy, a hesitation? For some of you, you know me quite well and I'm always getting you to do things. For some others of you don't know that, and this might feel a bit scary. You are more than willing to sit this one out if you don't feel comfortable to do it. I invite you to do it, but if you feel more comfortable, you can just listen to the hubbub that's going around you. So I'm going to invite you just to find somebody. It might be your next door who's sitting close to you, or you might feel brave and want to get up and move around. Just have a short conversation. How are you doing this morning? There you are. But have a little moment to listen. Listen to that voice. Go. Or not, as the case may be.
Yeah. All right. I was named, yeah. Yeah. I was amazed because I thought it was much later than 6 people. I remember the minutes came out, my head, that's it. Yeah, they had their age was just, and then, I never had any volition in anything. Now I do. It's amazing. Yeah. No, I'll wait till it's yeah, quite big breaks. I first read it like 10 years before, so it's like something weird happening. Yeah. That was like sensible.
I'm going to call you back gently now. Maybe.
I'm probably going to get told off now, like stopping your conversation halfway through. It was so lovely to hear. It started off quite quiet, like tentative, and then it's and I heard all these different voices and different accents, and it was lovely. Thank you. I'm wondering, so I'm going to throw something else out now. Would anybody, we've got time maybe for maybe 2 or 3 people, just to feedback if there's anything you want to say about how that experience was listening, not necessarily listening to what you were chatting about, but listening to the voice itself. Anybody brave this morning? Come on, you Unitarian dissenters. Joe?
It's hard listening to somebody's, what voice sounds like when you get into what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we can't hear you. Well, actually, we probably could hear you.
I found that I was talking to Pamela, which was a very nice chat. But it's quite hard once you get into what somebody's saying. I wasn't listening to this tone of Pamela's voice, I was listening to the story, because you started reading the story and about your dad on the coach. And even though I was going, I'm listening to the accent. But then you forget because you listen to the story. Good chat then.
Chats are always good. Anyone else?
I'm start going on about how fantastic writing and well-being are. You'll be pleased to hear. I'm being one again. Anyway, well, I've never chatted to Polly before, so that was lovely having a chat with her. We discovered, well, I discovered, she doesn't know me sharing this, that her grandfather was a Welsh Unitarian minister. And I discovered that we had a shared interest in Walt Whitman and Thoreau and Emerson. And that was lovely. So that's my little contribution.
God, I really better behave myself then. We were noticing when we were speaking that there were certain words, because both of us had travelled around quite a bit, lived in different places, we could just catch certain words with like, oh yeah, there's the Essex twang, there's the Northern twang, there's the South East London twang. And it's all of those that combine together to make our complete unique voice. Every voice here is completely different, which I find fascinating. So thank you. Some of us here who align ourselves as a Unitarian, some who've just come today, some are exploring that. But our history is from the voice of dissenters, daring to stand up and question, disagree, and even begin a new way of faith. It's because of them that we have such a rich, diverse spiritual community, unfettered by creed or dogma. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here now. Dare I say it, we may well be in a more traditional church, or we may well be in prison for dissenting. So a thank you to them. We have a responsibility as part of this community to speak out for justice, to raise our heads above the metaphorical pulpit. We can speak really passionately about things. I was in the GA a couple of weeks ago. There was passion. Motion was passed. But the words are just the beginning. They have little effect if they're not followed by actions. Some of us are prophetic speakers. There was one at the General Assembly that moved many people to tears with what she had to say. Some of us are quietly spoken, and yet our words are profound, meaningful. Some of us are really animated. We throw our arms around, gesticulate. There's a minister who's just about to sort of join the role. Big and bold and loud and really wonderful. It's like faith in action. Some of us have beautiful voices. When we hear them, it moves us to tears. And some of us are just moved by that voice, that quiet, still voice within. We don't have a huge amount to say. We just get on with it. But here in this church, as we begin a new chapter, there are many different voices. Some have been here for many years, some have just walked through the door. Every voice is important. We need to make room for every voice, even when they don't agree with what we're saying. More so. We are autonomous as a church, so we can make decisions here together. But we also need to be reminded there is a greater voice, the voice of the Unitarian movement in full. And we disagree. Those of you who sat on committee meetings, gone to GA assemblies, or made plans for anything, Unitarian or not, will know things can get quite heated. A recently retired minister reminded me of the importance of treating life like an experiment. You try it. If it doesn't work, you try again. I think it's the same with our voice. We take risks, we speak out. Sometimes we get it on point. Other times, it's like being a comedian on a stage. You die. No one's laughing. It's the same for all of us. It's the same for ministers. Sometimes we skip out of the church and go, yeah, nailed it. Other times it's like, oh. I'll tell you afterwards which one I'm going to go with after. I'll get the answer about midweek probably. So why did we come here? I don't for 1 minute think you come here to listen to me. We all come here to listen to each other. We come because we seek a spiritual community where we can find our own voice. We can find our own spiritual path. And yet we can contribute as community. When I was writing in the week in the office, and I thought I'd shut the door, but I hadn't, and someone came in. And he was looking for somebody in the congregation. And we had a little conversation. And it was one of those normal conversations of, how are you, and how's the weather, and how's your garden, what's come out in your garden? I had to focus because it was difficult for me to understand the dialect of this particular person. I realised that often I can listen to somebody, but I'm not really listening. I'm getting a general tone. So I sat down and we spoke. And I noticed the joy of listening to his voice. It was a moment of connection. So part of finding our own voice lies in believing that we have a voice that's worth finding. And we find that within, with that still voice within. When we stop the chitter-chatter, the TikTok, the texting, and we come quiet within. And then we hear the voice. And sometimes that voice tells us something we don't want to know. Sometimes that voice is telling us to do something that we're scared of. And sometimes that inner voice is asking us to be the kindest person that we know. So whether you're someone who stands with a microphone and stirs people up to action, that's going to happen next weekend for the big one. We're going to tell you a bit more about that in a moment. Whether you're the person who sits quietly, often offering a few words of gentle compassion, whether you're the one who sings like a lark, use your voice to the greatest good. And in this community, my thoughts and hopes and prayers are that everyone here gets a chance to speak. And we all get a chance to listen. And so it is. Your time, your turn, your time, your turn. We sing our closing hymn, number 174, Green Dot. I'll leave you with the words of Jacob Norby. I need to be startling clear this thing of finding your authentic voice, expressing your blessed weirdness and revealing your soul isn't an elegant process. You don't do it to be cool. It's only real when it's ruthless, relentless, and inevitable. But it is also a matter of personal and collective survival. Yes, it's that important. Your voice is that important. Amen.
Thank you, Jennifer.